Hello, so this evening we're taking a look at the Fox Moth from Flight Replicas in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's just come out today and I've had a quick look at it and taken it for a quick flight, so we're going to try and replicate that flight and see how we get on. We're at Kern Valley near Lake Isabella in the US. So this is a free scenery that's available from FlightSim.2 that's really rather marvellous. So you can see the aeroplane's modelled really nicely. It is, I think it's a small team that have made it though, and they're not the best funded team, so there are some corners that have been cut. It's not study level. So you'll notice that it uses the Cessna 152 sounds, but there are some nice features about it, so we're not going to be too hard on it, and it's very low cost as well. So let's go and jump in the aeroplane. And you'll notice straight away there are some hidden click spots, so if we click on the label here and look outside, we get a nice 3D pilot in the cockpit that actually, suits the aeroplane. If we click on the panel here, it opens and closes the canopy for us. We're going to leave it open for takeoff because it will help us to be able to lean out of the cockpit, see where we're going. Okay, so you can see it's modelled quite nicely. So when you look around, it's obviously okay. It's not the best ever modelling, but it's good enough. And we've all been spoilt by the Ant's tiger moth, so it's worth pointing out outside actually the fox moth and the tiger moth. So the fox moth is a derivative of the tiger moth. It shares an awful lot of the same airframe. So the wings are the same, the tail is the same. Obviously the fuselage has been changed, and the nose is very, very similar. I'm not sure if it has the same engine. Okay, so we're going to turn the master switch on, turn the generator on, turn the magnetos on, and we'll put the mixture to rich. We'll crank the throttle open slightly, make sure the parking brake was on, and then we can go and start the engine. So yeah, as you'll notice there, it's using the Cessna 152 sounds, and there doesn't appear to be a difference between being inside or outside the aeroplane. And I guess that's just an economics thing that, if you're a small team building an aeroplane, doing the sounds or licensing sounds is incredibly expensive. Especially as probably the people who make the sounds know full well now how many people might, or how many of an aircraft might sell, so I imagine the market for that has gone through the roof. Okay. Let's go and remove the parking brake and open the throttle gently, and we're moving. So it's worth pointing out the aeroplane's really nicely modelled. I don't think I've already said that. So we're just about to go straight through the guy with the trolley, which just shows you, that's why it's so good to be able to lean out the side of the cockpit and see where you're going. So we're going to taxi down to the runway here at Kern Valley. So it's worth pointing out, in one of the test flights I did, when you load this aircraft in by default, it's got an awful lot of payload on board, and if you are taking off at any sort of altitude, it won't like it. So I've removed the payload from the aeroplane, and I'm hoping we're going to get off the runway. The first test I did, I went barreling off across the lake about 10 feet off the floor, and I couldn't get any airspeed up. And that's at the point I looked inside and discovered that I was carrying 550 pounds of ballast. So I've removed all of it. So it's just me, the pilot, on board. Now, whether that's an oversight or whether it's a lack of detail in the flight model, I'm not sure. But we're going to go and fly around the local area here at Kern Valley. There's a bit of a crosswind today, 6 knots from the north, which is the direction we're facing basically. Okay, so pull back on the rudder. You have to stay away from idle on the engine because it will die. Very, very manoeuvrable because obviously it's a tail dragger. So full throttle. And with no payload, it takes to the air very easily. So it's a bit odd that they put so much payload in it, making it so difficult to handle. So obviously now I'm accelerating no trouble at all, keeping it low. And it's no trouble at all to fly. We're going full throttle, so yeah, it's not, the engine isn't how can I put this? You can't wreck the engine. So it's intentionally simple, I guess you could say. So let's go and close that canopy again, and you'll notice here there's no sounds when you do a lot of things like closing or opening the canopy. So if we just press Alt and move ourselves down in the cockpit a little bit, we can still fly it, obviously, because we've just moved the pilot camera to do this. So it's quite interesting to have a look around. We can open the doors while it's open, the airflow doesn't affect them. But yeah, it's interesting. Look, 2 seats and 2 seats, so 4 people. That would add up to, I guess, at a stretch, to £500, but it does seem a bit crazy that by default it was a fully loaded cabin, which made it incredibly difficult to get off the ground. So looking from outside, it's a lovely looking aeroplane, but then the Tiger Moth's a lovely looking aeroplane, so you get what you're expecting, I suppose. On the way down the runway there was no P factor, or there was no slipstream effect apparent or anything like that, so it was very, very easy to fly. But if you're looking for a super accurate aircraft of this era, this is not going to be it. Having said that, it does get thrown around quite a lot. You can see I'm bouncing around here. I'm not running FS Realistic, this is just the aeroplane moving around, and it's because we're getting near its limit. It doesn't like going that fast, so I'm pulling the throttle back to 75%. So we'll circle back over the lake and see how it stalls. I have a suspicion it's going to be incredibly predictable, but you never know. Okay, so let's get it in level flight. Just watching the altimeter. So we'll pull the throttle back. Doesn't want to lose too much airspeed, does it? So it's trying to lean right a little bit. We're going into the wind, so we should be fine. So airspeed's falling off. Altitude is falling, so I'm going to pull the nose up just to arrest the descent, which is obviously causing it to stall. No stall klaxon as far as I'm aware, and the right wing has dropped gently. Now I held the elevator in there and it didn't cause it to fall into a spin at all. So let's just try that with power on, see what happens. So we're climbing up across the wind, and it's just mushing. Got full right aileron and it's fallen to the left this time. So I'm going to hold it in, see what happens. And it accelerated enough to pull itself back out of it. So it's very, very stable. So even if it does drop a wing, you can maneuver it back out as soon as you have airspeed, which is good. Okay, let's go and circle back round then over Kern Valley and bring it in. So if you like aeroplanes of this era, but maybe you don't want to have to stress about flying it absolutely accurately, this could be the aeroplane for you. It's a bit disappointing that the sound isn't accurate, but as I said earlier, that becomes economics, I think, a lot of the time with aeroplanes in Flight Simulator. Economics of the team building it. Everybody expects the world on a stick these days. And they don't realise sometimes how much effort goes into making a world on a stick happen. Okay, so we're coming back towards Kern Valley. So we're going to pull the throttle back. Just descending. It will descend quite steeply. I guess it's quite draggy because of that big old fuselage. So we'll extend out over the patch of grass out here and turn back towards the airfield. So we'll go over the top of the hill, turn and come back in, and hopefully get it back on the ground safely. So this is the Fox Moth. I didn't know this aircraft existed until it came out for Flight Simulator. Okay, so we'll use this hill as a turning point. Just keep an eye on the airspeed. Don't want to drop a wing on the turn towards the runway. Okay, let's get this canopy back open and let's prepare to lean out of the side. And sit up as well. So I'm going to force it into a bit of a side slip because we get quite high. Although we do need to avoid these trees, I suppose. It wanders around wonderfully. So we're going a little bit into this crosswind. It's not a very strong crosswind. That's not bad for a first go. Okay, so we go and park at the campground parking area. Go behind this looks like a bird dog to me. Okay, parking brake on. And pull the mixture, and that should kill the engine, hopefully. And there it goes. So master off, generator off, alternators off. Did you notice there are no lights? It's a very, very basic aeroplane. So obviously there's no navigation kit either, so it's VFR all the way. No radios, yeah, no comm radio either by the look of it. No nav radios, obviously. Anyway, there you go. That is the Fox Moth in Microsoft Flight Simulator from Flight Replicas. So I don't think I've flown any of their aeroplanes before, so this is a first for me. I know they developed aeroplanes for the other simulators over the years, things like P3D and FSX. So interesting. So it's in the marketplace. It's not very expensive. It's not study level, so if you wanted to have some fun with a biplane of this era, you couldn't go far wrong. Okay, see you soon.